Thanks. It's this is really the culmination of a much larger project, the way I look at it. And really, for a good 20 years now, I've had, I guess you might call it a Christianity and culture kind of project. Mm-hmm. And the first big volume of that was my book, Natural Law and the Two Kingdoms. The subtitle of that was, if I can remember, a study in the development of Reformed social thought. So that's kind of self-explanatory. So it was really a historical study of Reformed social thought. And then the book you mentioned, the first volume was published in 2010, and then Divine Covenants and Moral Order really was a biblical theological study in which I tried to think about some fundamental issues of social thought, Christianity and culture, and try to work out a biblical theology of it. So this is really the final installment of that bigger project. And of course, I've got some smaller stuff on these topics as well, but
kind of spin-off works that are, for more of a popular audience.
That's right.
Crossway, right?
Right. But this last volume, you might say if the first volume that I mentioned was a historical theology, second biblical theology, I'm describing this as political theology. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that, because that term is not always used in the same way, but I would mean by that a theology of political community. So how do we think theologically about our political community? So what is their purpose in God's plan for this world and God's government of this world? Where do we as Christians relate to them? How do we fit in them? How do we think about our responsibilities within them? And then that's primarily part one of the book. And part two of the book tries to look at some particular kind of classical questions of political and legal theory, questions of religious liberty, justice, rights, authority, resistance. So it really is, in my view, kind of bringing this larger project to, in a way, you might say, a more practical focus, in that it's really trying to think concretely about who we are in this world, particularly with respect to our political communities, which is not the only part of our life in this world, obviously, but it is an important part of our life in this world. And it's a perennial issue of debate among Christian theologians and ordinary Christians. Right. And as you said, and I think you were saying it was timely issues. I mean, It's an election year, so in a way, it kind of works out. It's interesting. I originally drafted part one of this book in the fall of 2016. I was on sabbatical, and you know what was going on in the fall of 2016. So it was during that very emotionally charged election cycle.
Please tell me you took your sabbatical in Russia.
Yeah. Or maybe Ukraine. I don't know. And so here, now the book is coming out right as this next election cycle is really heating up. So in a way, I'm kind of grateful for the timing, I think, although some people might be so sick of thinking about anything political.
Or they think this is why you wrote it, that
right.
It's hot off the press.
Yeah, which is really not the case.
Like all these other books that seem to be written in 6 months or less.
Yeah.
Well, that being said, I might as well ask it now, but I was fed a question by our friend and presbytery colleague, Charles Williams. So before we get into the theology, just for the people who can't listen to the whole episode, please just tell us, what is the correct Christian voting choice for U.S. president in 2020?
Yes. I think people will have to ask me that privately and send me a large check. And if they do that, I'll be happy to tell them who to vote for.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.